open the book slowly. Its cover is old leather, warm from the palms that have held it before tonight. It smells like cedar and a hint of rain that got into the pages a long time ago and never quite left. A ribbon slips free and rests against the table like a sleeping red snake. The room is very quiet. The kind of quiet where you can hear the small clicks of a clock, the hush of the forest outside, and the soft shape of your own breath. This is the Midnight Almanac of Gravity Falls. It was not written in a hurry. It does not need you to finish it. It wants only to be opened and then turned, one page at a time, like the river turns around a rock. Tonight we will open it together. We will not rush. We will not chase after mysteries. We will walk. We will listen. We will let the town speak in a voice that is steady and kind. Outside the window, Oregon dark settles over pines that remember everything. The needles hold a day's worth of sun and little green memories, and then let it go to make room for the night. Stars gather above the valley in patient patterns. Somewhere far off, a train hums its line through the hills. Somewhere closer, a screen door closes softly, and a porch light blinks once and settles into a friendly glow. The first page of the almanac is thick and slightly curled. On it, a hand drew a simple map of the valley. The ink is brown now, not black, because time has its own colors. You can see the river that wanders and sometimes refuses to act like a river at all. You can see the long ridge of trees. You can see the town, small and square and sure of itself, even in the dark. In the margin, a note. Best read by lamplight. Another? If pages feel heavier than usual, it is normal. The night adds weight. There are no sharp edges in this book. Even the corners are rounded, softened by thumbs and years. The almanac understands that night is when thoughts become wide and feelings become gentle. It knows that stories told at bedtime should soothe and not stir, should guide and not test. So this is not a book about danger. It is a book about nearness, about footsteps on pine needles that make almost no sound, about windows with yellow rooms and the shadows of plants on the glass, about fog that lifts slowly and chooses not to surprise anyone. We will start with maps, then with houses, then with the sky. We will look at things that are usually passed by in a hurry, and we will give them time. We will give them more than time. We will give them attention, which is a kind of love. If we meet strange things, we will call them by gentle names. If we pass old stories, we will whisper, "Thank you," and let them rest. If your mind is busy, let it put its busy on the page like a coat at the door. If your eyes are heavy, let them be heavy. If you need to breathe deeper, the pines outside will help. They have been practicing all day. In a minute, we will turn the page and follow a small lantern across a paper valley. But first, listen. The forest is making a slow sound like a tide coming in on a shore made of needles. We are ready. The ribbon is set aside. The lamp is warm. When you turn the next page, do it like you are turning down a bed, and the night will climb in. Good. Now we begin. Hold the map up to the lamp. Not too close. Just enough so the paper glows a little, like skin under light. The lines are careful. Someone with calm hands made these marks. The river is a curved sentence. The hills are small waves. Every trail is a thread. There are tiny notes in tiny letters tucked into corners where most people would not look. They say things like, "Listen here, and fog gathers kindly in this bend, and best berries if you are patient." Maps made at night tell the truth in a different way. Day maps are all about distance and speed. Night maps are about touch and pause. On a night map, you do not need to know how fast you can get from the town square to the ridge. You need to know where the ground smells sweet after rain. You need to know which path puts the moon over your left shoulder and keeps it there. You need to know where the air becomes cooler and how to carry that cool into your sleep. The first path marked is called Lantern Way. No one named it that officially. The town never put a sign on it. It got its name because one person walked it with a lantern, and then another, and then a few more, and the name stuck as softly as dew sticks to grass. Lantern Way begins behind the old post office and climbs the slow side of the hill. In the day, you might pass it and not see it at all. At night, it finds you. It bends in a friendly shape and says, "Come along. We will not go far." Walk it in the Almanac first. Your finger is a traveler. It moves along the line and the line accepts it. On your left, a maple with leaves that look extra silver in moonlight. On your right, a split rail fence that leans inward like a listener. Every 20 steps, a small dot on the map marks a place where the ground is a little soft, where spring water came up from a quiet place to see the stars. At each dot, someone wrote a date. Some are old. Some are from last summer. The water is the same. The notes are new. At the top of Lantern Way, the map shows a little open circle. Meet the sky, the map says. And then very small, no rush. That is one rule of night maps, no rush. Another rule is that what matters is not the center, but the edges of leaves. The edge where the town becomes the forest, and the forest becomes the ridge, and the ridge becomes the sky. The Almanac is an expert at edges. Below the ridge, the town is a handful of careful squares and soft rectangles. A diner with a jukebox that knows only nighttime songs. A store that keeps one light on in the back because someone always comes by for a thread or a nail or a word. A workshop that hums because wood does not like to be alone. The map places them without bragging. It does not say, "Here is the famous thing." It says, "Here is the familiar. Here is the door that sticks unless you lift when you turn the knob." On the far side of the page, the river widens, then narrows again, as if struggling not to smile. There is a note near a shallow bend. Sometimes the water forgets which way to go. It is not lost. It is remembering something. If you stand on the bank at midnight when the moon is bright and give the river time, you might see it lean backwards for a few breaths. The water does not make a fuss. It simply tries out another memory and then returns to now. Some maps are noisy with arrows and warnings. This one is quiet. It uses small symbols that feel like kindness. A tiny lantern means a safe glow. A small leaf means the ground is forgiving. 3 dots mean sit. If you see a little house shape with a heart where the window should be, that is a home where the porch light invites every hour. The Almanac does not put names on those doors. It trusts that night travelers will know how to be gentle with the houses that breathe. Turn the page. The map on the next sheet is older. The ink is lighter. The corners are more rounded. The river is drawn a little differently, as if the person who drew it heard a different song in the water. There are places where the path used to go straight and now turns. And there are small eraser ghosts where someone changed their mind and the map forgave them. Maps are like that. They allow for change. They remain kind when the ground does not match the drawing exactly. Cross-hatched lines show a slope that looks steep by day and soft by night. A dotted circle sits right at the top. Moon listening, it says. The instructions are easy. You sit. You listen. You do not try to make meaning. You let meaning find you if it wants to. Most nights, what finds you is a breeze that smells faintly like mint, because somewhere down in the town, someone grew a patch of it near the back steps, and the scent climbed up the hill without asking anyone for directions. The last map in this section is not a map at all. It is an empty page with a single sentence in the middle. Walk slowly enough that the night can walk with you. If the whole almanac had only this one line, it would still be complete. But it wants to give you more. It wants to bring you to doors and under roofs and up into the sky. So it turns the line into a path and the path into rooms. We will go there next. For now, fold the map close with a careful hand. The light has moved on the table. The room has grown a little deeper. The book is ready to lead you inside. At night, Gravity Falls has a gentle pulse. It is not loud. It sits under everything else like a drum you can only feel if you put your palm to the table. Houses have a part in that rhythm. They settle, they sigh, they speak in small creaks that mean, I am here and I remember you. If you walk the streets when most lights are out, you can hear old wood telling soft stories to the nails that hold it together. The almanac opens to a drawing of the mystery shack as a sleeping animal. The roof is the back. The porch is a paw. The sign whispers a snore. No tricks tonight. The neon rests. Inside, the air holds a day's worth of laughter and questions, and it lets them sink into the chairs and the shelves like they are being kept safe. On the page, little arrows show where warm air travels when the door clicks shut. They curl up the stairs and into the rafters where dust makes tiny constellations if you shine even a small light. The shack talks at night, but not in a way that wakes anyone. It shifts to take pressure off a tired beam. It remembers the shape of footsteps that come up the porch one at a time. It keeps a quiet list of people who leaned on the counter and told a long story while someone behind it nodded and smiled. If you put your ear to the floorboards, you might hear a chorus of simple sounds, not words, that mean we made it through the day and the night is ours. Across town, the library breathes too. By day, it smells like paper and fingers. At night, it smells like paper and stars. The almanac shows the rows of shelves as tree trunks, the books as leaves that do not fall. The windows take in moonlight until the glass looks like it is holding milk. There is a reading table that sits under the highest lamp. It keeps a secret drawer that sticks on purpose, not to be unkind, but because letting a drawer go too easily is not how memories work. The page about the library has a soft note in the corner. If you borrow a book after hours, return it by dawn. The library likes to wake up with all its pieces. This is not a rule written by people. It is a wish written by the building itself. The building will not scold you if you miss a morning. It will simply feel the shape of the missing book, like a missing tooth, and forgive until it comes home. Some houses keep wind chimes that do not need wind at all. They pick up the movement of a sleeping town the way a cat picks up a person's mood. Just enough. A bit of metal, a bit of glass, a soft sound that does not ask you to notice it. The almanac shows a row of small houses with porches and chairs that have grooves where hands rested during long evenings. One porch light is left on always, not bright, just steady. It is not a beacon. It is a promise. The bakery exhales sugar that has calmed down. The general store breathes through a back door that shuts and opens and shuts again, because the night never quite closes completely. The old school creaks in long lines like a violin playing a song for itself. The workshop that fixes what breaks keeps its tools in a careful order and sleeps with the lightest snore of a turned-off machine. The almanac traces these sounds with little curves of ink that look like the marks a river leaves when it pulls back from shore. There is a house with a big front window and a plant in it that leans toward the street lamp. The plant should be asleep, but it is not finished looking. The house does not mind. It adjusts its quiet so the plant can take one more minute. Near the back of the same house, a small dog turns in a circle and sighs and becomes a warm comma in the sentence of a rug. The floorboards, proud of their work, do not squeak under the dog because the dog has earned peace. Not all houses are old. Some are new and do not yet know how to speak at night. They learn. The Almanac is patient with them. It shows how the evening air moves through a new hallway for the first time. How a new roof listens to rain and finds its favorite notes. How a new stair decides which step will be the one that creaks the most, because every staircase needs one honest voice. The last drawing in this chapter is of a house that is not a house at all, but a porch with no building behind it. It sits on an empty lot where someone will build something later. For now, it is a stage for crickets. The Almanac lists the ways a porch can be a shelter even when it has no walls to protect anything. It keeps the night company. It gives the moon a place to land. It is somewhere to put a cup and a thought. The page edges smell faintly like smoke from a far-off campfire somebody forgot to stop loving. When you step away from the houses, your shoes know the sidewalks and your shoulders know the shapes of doors you do not need to open tonight. The town, breathing easily, says good night without closing its eyes. The Almanac turns the page and the room feels wider. We have walked maps and porches. We have heard wood talk in sleep. It is time to look up and let the sky speak next. Some skies are busy. They crackle and flash and chase. The sky above gravity falls at night is a teacher who knows how to wait. It does not force anything. It takes the day's noise, wraps it in blue-black, and lets the stars set needles of light through it. The Almanac begins this chapter with a simple reminder. When you look up, lean back your head like you are letting the heavens pour over your face. The first constellation here is not the one in books. It is the sleeping bear, made from stars that do not care what other people named them. Children made it up a long time ago. If you connect the dots that way, the bear's nose points toward the ridge, and its back curves over the town as if to keep the dew from falling too cold. The Almanac draws it with a light hand. The bear is gentle, paws tucked under, breath slow. People who have a hard time resting sometimes walk out to the yard and find the bear and match their breathing to it. In and out, in and out. No hurry. Meteor showers visit in August and other months too, but the valley likes August best. On those nights, the sky drops bright, quiet seeds that sprout in the eyes of whoever happens to be looking. You can tell when someone has been watching meteors. Their voice after is soft in a special way, like they just learned a song and the last note is still in their mouth. The Almanac says, do not make wishes too fast. Let the trail finish. It is not a warning. It is an invitation to savor. On some nights, especially after the river has been thinking so hard, it forgets its direction for a minute. The moon seems to slow down. Not actually, but that is how it feels when you give it enough attention. It hangs above the pines like a bowl of milk that someone holds steady so it will not spill. The edges shine and then blur and then shine again. The Almanac shows phases not as a chart, but as faces. A shy smile, a wide grin, a thoughtful half-light that makes every path look like it is holding its breath. There are stories about lights that do not belong to stars, not the scary kind. More like lanterns borrowed by the sky for a late errand. The Almanac draws a few small circles in the upper corner of the page, labeled simply visitors. If you see them, you are lucky. If you do not, you are also lucky because the sky is full enough. Either way, the valley does not insist on answers. It practices good manners with the unknown. Clouds at night are not the bosses they are by day. They are blankets, moving slowly. They make rooms out of the places between stars. Sometimes they cover everything, and the town looks up at a plain, dark sheet and decides to trust what it cannot see. That is a skill Gravity Falls teaches gently. Trust the hidden. Trust the quiet. Trust that the bear is still there even if the fur is covered. The ridge is important when you look at the sky. It frames everything. The pines draw a sawtooth line that turns the heavens into a cup that fits the valley's mouth. The Almanac suggests a simple thing. Find one tree and make it yours, not to own, to know. Watch how that one tree writes its shape against the stars in summer and then in winter. See how it can be the same and also new, like a word said, with different feelings. Far to the west, beyond the hills, the ocean lifts its own sky and sends bits of it inland. You cannot see the water from town, not at night, but sometimes the wind brings a salt thought with it, and the stars look cleaner because they were rinsed. The Almanac has a faint blue wash along the western edge of the page, a hint that the world is bigger than any map or book, even one as patient as this. That bigness is not meant to make you feel small. It is meant to make the bed feel perfect, like the right-sized boat on the right-sized sea. If you lie on your back and watch long enough, the stars begin to seem like they're watching back. Not in a way that makes you self-conscious, in a way that makes you feel counted. The Almanac includes a tiny practice for those moments. Pick 3 stars, any 3, and connect them into a doorway. Imagine the door opening and a slow breeze coming through. Let that breeze be sleep. If sleep is not ready yet, keep the door open and count the breaths that pass through it. On rare nights, when air and light make a friendly agreement, the northern edge of the sky grows pale curtains. They move like someone remembering a dance. If you see them, it will be quiet, because the valley knows how to keep a secret. The Almanac notes that if you cheer too loudly, the curtains shy away. Better to put your hand on your heart and say, "I see you," and then let the lights do whatever they came to do. The chapter ends with a drawing of a hand releasing a small paper lantern. It floats up and becomes a star for a minute or two. Then it goes out. But the place it reached remains, and the next star that wanders near seems to shine a little brighter, as if happy to have a new friend. That is how the sky above Gravity Falls behaves. It is generous. It takes what the town gives it, and gives back 1,000 small, kind things. Close your eyes for a moment. The bear is breathing. The ridge is writing. The river is remembering. Houses rest. The map sleeps folded on the table. We are not in a hurry. When you are ready, the Almanac will open its next page and show you where the water goes when it cannot decide, and how a town becomes a glow that even owls admire. But for now, the sky is enough. Let it pour over you like warm, dark tea. Let your shoulders soften. Let your eyes grow slow. The book waits happily. At the edge of town, the river widens its shoulders and takes a long, calm breath. In the day, it looks like any other water with work to do. At night, it is a listener. It takes stories, keeps what's needed, lets the rest drift. The Almanac has traced its bend so many times that the ink looks like it learned how to flow. A finger on the page feels the pull. The river does not hurry you. It suggests. Walk to the bank as if your feet know the place better than your head does. The grass tilts in your direction, not from wind, but from welcome. There is a shelf of sand where the water naps between roots. It leaves little scallop marks like the hems of a dress someone stitched too carefully to be seen. The moon sets down a white path across the slow surface, and for a while the path is steady. Then a fish turns near the top, and the path shivers, and then the path is whole again. The river is a teacher of how to be interrupted and remain yourself. The valley tells a small tale about bottles. Some hold notes, some hold just one word, not because somebody was in trouble, because somebody wanted the word to travel. Home. Still, thanks. The bottles set off in daylight and arrive back in moonlight. The current pretends to be straight, but it is full of side conversations. The almanac shows short dotted lines tucked into the margins, eddies where the river rehearses a memory before letting it join the rest. Sometimes, very gently, the river goes the other way. Not for long, not enough to make a town nervous. It is more like when you are walking and you pause and step back for one thing you forgot, and then you go forward again. On certain nights when the sky is a bowl and the pines lean in, the water tastes a moment from the past and swallows it, pleased to have found that flavor again. If you are patient, if you breathe with the trees and do not ask to be shown, you might feel the change at your ankles, a cool insistence sliding against the grain of your expectations. The river is not lost. It is thorough. Lanterns like to see themselves in water. The town keeps a basket of them in the small shed by the bend. People borrow one, light it, and set it on the surface to test whether their wishes are light enough to float. No one calls it a ceremony. It is simply what hands do when they have something gentle to carry. The almanac lists the rules with kindness. Mind the reeds. Do not rush the flame to leave you. It will leave on its own. Whatever you think of while the lantern goes around the bend belongs to you in the morning. Children will sometimes build boats out of bark and twine and bits of foil. They send them out as if training the river to deliver good news. The boats are brave, then soaked, then brave again. On nights when the moon is late, the water makes a brighter dark that teaches the eye to trust edges more than shapes. If you watch long enough, you will see a boat ride a thought everyone in town had at once. You won't know the thought. You will recognize the togetherness, like the way a dining room goes quiet right before the pie comes out. There is an old fallen tree half in, half out of the current. Long ago was Lightning's idea. Now it is a dock for beetles and a sermon for moss. Folks sit on it because the bark learned how to be a bench. Their weight is accepted. Their secrets are accepted. Not to be kept forever. Nothing is asked to do that, but to be held long enough to cool. The river keeps a cold underlayer even when summer has been bossy. Dip a hand and bring up that cool, then press it to the hinge of your jaw, the soft where your worry hides. Let the cold tell the worry there is no job tonight. Even in winter, the river writes, ice is just another pen. The flow narrows to a slow script, and then a slower one. It is never a stop. It is a legible pause. Sometimes frost draws lace on stones where the water licks them politely. Standing there, you can hear distance, a thin ringing where the surface tightens, and a hollow thrum where the deep remains warm enough to move. The almanac marks these tones as river bells. They do not ask you to come to attention. They tell you you already have. As midnight leans toward morning, mist rises from the water like breath you can see. It finds your sleeves and hems and makes everything seem new sewn. On those misted nights, the river appears wider than it is. It doubles itself with grace, the way a story becomes two stories when retold without judgment. Old fishermen nod at the fog as if greeting an elder. Teenagers whisper to it the way you whisper to a sleeping dog, so you can share the couch without waking anyone. The fog does not answer. It agrees. The river has carried small, important cargo, a ribbon that slipped free from the almanac, a button shaped like the moon, a leaf with a hole dead center that, when held to your eye, makes the world a coin. Once, long ago, it carried the quiet laughter of two brothers and saved it under a root, where the sound could dry without losing its shape. If you put your ear to that root, you can hear the laughter as a wooden hum. It would be rude to press too close. Listen just enough to know it is there. When you leave, the bank remembers your footprints for a little while and then rearranges them. Not to erase you, but to keep the place ready for the next person who needs to not rush. The river goes on being particular and generous. It keeps what it should. It offers what it can. As you walk back toward town, the sound follows you to the first porch like a friend who knows how to stop at the gate. The book waits open. The page smells faintly of mint, because somewhere upstream someone brushed a sprig as they leaned to drink. Gravity Falls has its creatures, the ones that make tourists point, and the ones that make locals smile without pointing at all. Daylight gives them outlines. Night gives them manners. The Almanac introduces them as neighbors rather than specimens, each with a small habit that turns myth into presence. The deer with extra eyes lives at the edge of the meadow and does not startle easily. In daylight, those eyes make people tell stories with sharp edges. At night, they are simply more places to hold moon. The deer looks at you, and you feel the kind of scene that asks nothing back. You lower your shoulders. Your breath remembers how to be a swing instead of a gate. The Almanac calls this animal lighthouse deer, and notes that if you bow, it will bow, not to imitate you, but to complete the shape of the moment. Squirrels here are orderly as librarians after closing. While the town rests, they arrange acorns into little constellations under certain trees, not as offerings, as labels. Imagine waking and needing to know where soft morning is kept. The squirrels can tell you, under the fir with a scratch in its bark, third root from the path. The Almanac sketches their patterns with a soft graphite that smears if you aren't careful. Smearing is fine. It means the squirrels have been busy. There is a raccoon who rolls coins down the slope behind the store. Not to steal, to listen. Each coin makes a different ring on the boards near the back steps. The raccoon prefers nickels. Quarters are too bright, pennies too thoughtful. The sound of a nickel rolling is the exact sound the town makes when deciding to turn the porch light off and then leaves it on anyway. The raccoon's mask is not for meanness. It is for the fun of pretending no one knows who loves the music of small metal circles. Owls in this valley are polite announcers. They do not interrupt. They allow silence to have the first word and the last. Between, they place just enough who to help your heart count. On rainy nights, they fluff and look like old professors who changed out of their stiff clothes and feel relieved. The Almanac shows an owl's path through the sleeping streets as a dotted ribbon. The ribbon passes above all the places that keep promises. The night nurse's porch, the workshop light, the window where a kid forgot their project, and will remember it at dawn. Not all creatures are familiar. Some are careful about being understood. Near the upper ridge lives a shape that is always the shape of your best memory of a dog. It follows just far enough behind that you do not turn. If you stop, it stops. If you smile, it sits. If you speak, it climbs back into the trees, not frightened, gentle about the boundary. The Almanac refuses to name it. It draws 4 prints, then draws moonlight in them, then lets the page stay empty for a little while as if in respect. The gnomes are not the rowdy kind tonight. Mostly they are blanket lifters. When a sleeping person kicks the cover away, a gnome tugs it back up with 2 small hands and 1 polite grunt. Sometimes they stand on each other to reach. They leave no thanks note. They take none. If you wake and feel tucked without remembering doing it, consider the gnomes paid. Bats braid the air over the river into something that looks like handwriting. They write without ink and consider their work done when the night reads it. The Almanac has tried to copy their script and cannot. It draws a series of loops and then admits in the margin, close, but the bats are better. On the hottest nights, the bats lower so near the water that their shadows are cooler than the air. Fish rise to touch those shadows and go back down. Smiling fish smiles. A fox passes through town like a red punctuation mark. Quick commas at corners, a long dash across the vacant lot. It leaves a single hair on a fence latch, and the latch seems proud to wear it. The fox is not a trick. It is a reminder that the sentence we are all in has more parts to come, and none need your hurry. In winter, the fox prints across new snow, and every step looks like a quiet yes. Bears keep the deep woods, but now and then one comes low and heavy quiet to sit behind the school, not to rummage, to rest. The bear leans against the brick and listens to a dream that still lives in the walls from afternoon nap time. 30 children breathing while paper snowflakes turn on threads. Walls do not forget. The bear stands when the dream is finished, shakes, and leaves dust sparks in the air. The almanac presses brown paper to the page here, a soft rectangle like a paw-shaped window. On some nights, when the air is a bell and anything that moves rings, small lights please themselves among the ferns. They are not fireflies exactly. They are more like ideas practicing how to arrive. They come on, go off, come on and stay. If you stand among them, your sleeves will glow as if your thoughts have hands. The almanac reminds you to walk slowly so you don't gather more ideas than you have pockets for. The animals of odd kindness keep the valley from tilting too far toward the dangerous side of strange. They are balancing stones on the town's wider scale. When you meet one, nod. When you forget and hurry, they forgive. When you remember and stop, they step closer and make room. After midnight, Main Street is a soft hallway. The neon signs stop advertising and start humming lullabies. The almanac turns its pages like doors, and each door opens into a room that knows how to sleep without shutting you out. The diner keeps one booth who prefers the night. That booth has a seat cushion that sighs into your shape and a tabletop that remembers every ring of every mug set down with care. After hours, the jukebox does not go quiet. It goes kind. It finds the B-sides, the instrumentals, the songs that never learn to boast. Once an hour, it plays a melody no one can place. Folks call it the dream reel. If you sit very still, you can hear the clink of spoons settling in their drawer like little boats touching docks. In the bakery, tomorrow has already started. Dough rises under clean cloth, which might as well be a blanket. The ovens are off, but the air is warm because it knows what's coming. A whisk hangs like a wind chime that doesn't need wind. The almanac draws the baker's hands without faces, hands dusted in flour, palms open, fingers curved the way fingers curve when they are not pretending to be clever. On the sill, 3 croissants, cool for no one in particular, and exactly the right person. The general store has a cat who thinks the ceiling is a low sky. It walks the upper shelves like a thoughtful storm. Clipboards sleep against nails where lists have finally agreed to wait for morning. A single bulb at the back glows as if embarrassed to be up this late and secretly proud of its stamina. If you stand in the doorway long enough, the bell hushes itself. "We know you're here," the store says without a voice. "Take your time." A barbershop mirror keeps a night library of faces. In the day, it works hard reflecting. At night, it prefers recollection. It rehearses the curve of a grin, the tilt of a question, the permission people give themselves when the cape wraps their shoulders and they are safe to be quiet. The Almanac notes that the cone jar looks like a small aquarium whose fish are teeth that forgot to bite and learned to groom instead. At the hardware store, nails dream of roofs, and roofs dream of weather that asks nicely. Hammers lie on their sides so the weight of their heads can rest. A roll of twine thinks about everything it will hold without hurting. The aisles are straight, but the night walks them like a river so nothing feels trapped. If you hold a flashlight backward and let its weak spill fall behind you, you'll see a friendly shadow that looks like someone accompanying you with a toolbox. They are not there to fix. They are there to approve the not fixing until morning. A small antique shop faces the square. Inside, clocks agree not to tick. They hold time without making any noise about it. A lamp with a beaded fringe learns how beads sound when no one is performing. A tray of keys keeps each other company. One of them fits a door that was never made. Another fits every door once and then none. The Almanac sketches a hand reaching into the tray and coming up empty on purpose. Sometimes not finding is the most restful thing. The little cinema on the corner has its curtain half drawn like a sleepy eye. Posters in frames trade compliments. Nice color. Good stance. What a tagline. The popcorn machine has made a peace with silence it did not know it needed. If you sit in row 5, seat 7, and lean back until your head catches the headrest just right, you will hear the last lines of every film ever shown there braided into one blessing. It is comprehensible only to the part of you that understands farewells. Down the block, a tailor shop is more night than day. Fabrics keep moon better than they keep sun. Rolls of cloth lean into one another like tall friends who do not need to speak to be understood. Pins stay in their cushion like stars over a small city of hymns. A measuring tape sleeps in a loose curve that says, "You are enough around." The Almanac places a tiny heart near the seam ripper as a note of respect. Undoing is a craft. Even the empty storefronts hold something. They are jars for future. The glass reflects streetlights and whoever you are when you think you are alone. A small for-lease sign curls at one corner, and the curl casts a shadow that looks like a comma, not the end. The Almanac invites you to imagine what belongs there without working to decide. Let the space daydream, it suggests. You can borrow those dreams later if you need them. On the way back toward the square, the clock tower's hands balance midnight without wobble. On the hour, it does not shout. It clears its throat like an old friend checking in. The sound travels roof to roof, brick to brick, riverward and ridgeward, and stops politely at the edge of sleep on every pillow. Shops by starlight are not closed. They are practicing being open in the softest way. You pass, you nod. They keep the town's small engines warm until morning. Some doors are for daytime, bells and greetings and chalked specials. Some doors belong to the hour when the horizon forgets to be a line and is just a place where colors agree to meet. The Almanac has a catalog of doors you will not find on any permit. It prints them carefully, then smudges the edges because a door that shows up too clearly loses its manners. Behind the post office, a narrow passage wears vines like a cardigan. Halfway along, where the brick changes shade, there is a plank that lifts if you lift gently. Under it, a knob. The door leads to a room that is only big enough for 2 chairs and a tin of tea that never empties. No table, no shelves. Just the chairs, facing not each other, but a window on a wall that has no outside. The window shows weather the town might have had. Sit. Watch rain that falls sideways and a sun that seems to hum. Leave when you feel you've been somewhere, anywhere, long enough. In the attic of the library, a hatch opens into the space between two roofs that were built by neighbors who liked each other. The space is a kindness they forgot they made. It smells like cedar and old pencils. Inside are pages torn from books that were never written, blank pages with titles at the top in calm fonts. A guide to looking slowly. Conversations with lamps. Recipes for weather. The Almanac notes that if you take one, it will be there again tomorrow. The hatch closes with a sound like a secret shaking your hand. At the back of the diner, where deliveries come, there's a broom closet that's a little too deep. At night, if the broom is leaning exactly left, the back wall is not a wall. Step through and arrive in a hallway made of tiled floor and steam. It looks like every kitchen you've ever trusted combined into one you do not have to clean. Pots burble very softly. A timer never rings. You can smell bread that reminds you of the best thing you've done and soup that forgives you for taking so long to do it. Take nothing. Taste with your shoulders. Return the broom to center when you leave. In the trees above the river, a knot in an old trunk is not a knot. It is a door that opens the way a yawn opens a face, surprised and inevitable. Inside is a room the size of 3 raccoons exactly. It is lined with felt, and the floor is a bed, because what else would a tree build to honor nights? People who duck in find sleep in moments and wake 18 minutes later knowing one sentence that makes the next week easier. They seldom say the sentence out loud. They wear it. The Almanac draws the knot door larger than life and then shrinks it with an arrow that reads, "You must be tender to see." There is a stone arch in the park that by day looks like part of a ruin put there to give tour brochures something to mention. After midnight, it's a hinge between places that are both here. Walk through and you're still in the park. But the benches have traded stories, and the fountain has a memory you can borrow of a day when it rained, and 3 different people decided to forgive. Walk back, and the fountain has coins again. The forgiveness remains. The Almanac suggests taking the arch like vitamins once in a while, not because you must, because it couldn't hurt. Some doors are not doors so much as permissions. The chalk line kids draw across the sidewalk becomes a doorway if you step with the specific softness of someone who respects chalk. Cross it that way, and for 1 block you will hear your shoes the way the sidewalk hears them. Friends visiting, not travelers passing. The Almanac marks such lines with a single star and a short instruction. Tread as if carrying a sleeping kitten. And yes, there is the door to nowhere. It lives on the side of a warehouse that never needed a door there. Wooden with a knob that does not turn and hinges that are just drawings. Children knock, and because the town is good, something answers. Not a person, not a ghost. A new sound every time, perfectly small. A spoon in a cup, a chair pushed back from a table, a book shut with a soft thuff. A sigh that means, oh, it's you. The nothing beyond the door is a chorus of the gentlest happenings. The Almanac cautions, if cautions is the word, to knock only when you long for company without company. Hidden doors do not hide to be clever. They rest from the world because the world is bright and busy and doors deserve to nap. When you find one, leave it as you found it or better. If better means straighter, straighten. If better means messier so it blends in, scuff the dust with your sleeve. Always pretend you were not the first to discover it, because you were not. A bird got there before you, a breeze after. The door stands, grateful for all arrivals. Before the shack had its dozen ways of laughing, before a journal learned the posture of a hand, there were 2 boys who practiced being a team. The Almanac opens this chapter with a drawing of two shadows on a sidewalk. Wide hat, narrow hat, stretching evening long and meeting at the toes. Stan and Ford were different the way riverbanks are different. One held the line, one explored the curve. Both were river. At night, long before gravity falls was in either pocket, they lay on their backs on a roof and made constellations that did not belong to any book. That one would say, is a sandwich. No, the other would say, and then both would smile because, of course, it was both. Sandwich and ferry boat and secret elevator and anything else that made the story taller. The Almanac labels those star maps practice for later bridges. In the small bedroom they shared, every object had a job. A shoe was a paperweight because the window liked to drift open. A stack of comic books was a staircase for a toy that was supposed to be a submarine but was better at climbing. The lamp's shade turned the color of their conversation and stayed that color until morning. When one of them couldn't sleep, the other kept his eyes closed and said, "Tell me as if I were already dreaming." They did not know that was science. They did not know that was business. It was not either. It was a language they invented so they could both arrive. Cardboard was their favorite country. You could cut it and add to it and cut it again without any part getting offended. They built a box whose door was a circle and grew a rule to go with it. Whoever entered had to invent a new way to say hello. By week 3, the hellos were full of stamps and borrowed accents and whole chapter titles. The Almanac prints a few in a margin. Ahoy, approximately. Greetings, honorary future. Behold, my ears are open. They loved radios for different reasons. One loved the voices. One loved the static between the voices. At night, when dark makes signals travel kinder, they tuned through a drift of stations and took turns, not stopping. Sometimes they landed on a broadcast that sounded like a town fair happening on a planet with excellent cuisine. Sometimes the dial found a woman reading the farm report so gently it made fences feel appreciated. Both boys listened. Both boys learned that information can arrive like weather. The important thing is not the details. It's what you grow in it. In the kitchen, an adult sighed and slid a plate across a table and said a thing adults say when they hope it will be true. The boys did not argue. They were too busy measuring the distance between the table leg and the floor with a ruler that had lost most of its numbers. They declared the space 5 quiets tall and celebrated with a high five that landed with the exact sound of 2 planes agreeing. Years make many noises in a house. The door's new idea of where it should sit in its frame. The drawer that started out loud and learned to whisper. The step that confides only when stepped on. The boys mapped those noises on a page with boxes and arrows. If kitchen drawer whispers, then porch light blinks within 2 minutes. If step 6 complains, then skip step 7, because step 7 is proud and will shine. The Almanac prints the chart and adds, early systems, elegant, not because they were right, but because they were friendly. They did not set out to be brave. They set out to be thorough. Bravery came as a side effect of wanting to see what was behind things, not to take, but to be sure those things had company. On one late summer night, when the air tasted like peach skin, they followed their own shadows down the sidewalk until the shadows lined up exactly with the streetlight's shadows, and then they kept going because the alignment felt like permission. Neither said it, but both knew. Permission is the difference between lost and looking. When seasons changed, the boys did not. They wore themselves through them like favorite jackets. At the first snow, they drafted a treaty with their mittens. We will wear you unless we need to feel the cold to know we are here. The mittens signed, At the first thaw, they promised the puddles they would step carefully and still step. Puddles do not need promises. Puddles like being appointed to ceremony anyway. In the small hours when houses around them slept in the way houses sleep when they know people are good, the boys held their last conversation of the day with the lights off. One asked questions like coins dropped in a fountain. The other answered like ripples. They traded, question, ripple, until the coins and the water forgot who started what. The Almanac shows two speech bubbles that overlap, and in the overlap it prints a heart so small you have to turn the page to catch the light just right to see it. Time is a straight thing printed on schedule. Childhood is a curved thing printed on knees and elbows and a certain way of looking at corners. The boys carried both. They built in each other a place to return to. A workbench with room for 4 elbows, 2 hats, 1 project and another, and silence that did not wait impatiently for words. Later, when the map would show them the valley that fit them like a sentence that had been missing a pair of commas, they would stand at its edge and not perform. They would do what they had practiced. Notice. The Almanac closes this chapter with a picture of a lunch bag folded just so and a note tucked under its crease. See you. Not see you later, not be careful, not remember to. Just see you. 2 simplest words. The promise inside them is the kind that glows in the dark without instructions. The book does not say what comes next. It assumes you know. Boys become men. Men become boys. Brothers become shorelines for each other, where the river can think for a minute and then go on. The night turns the page softly so not to wake anything that isn't ready. A boy and a lamp. That's all it takes to make a room into a small observatory. The lamp is a flashlight tipped on its side, the beam covered with a bit of red candy wrapper, so the light is kind to dark-adjusted eyes. The room is anywhere Dipper happens to be, under the shack's eaves on the back steps, at the edge of the yard where the grass listens better. The Almanac opens to a page of dotted lines and pencil smudges. Field notes, it says at the top, and underneath smaller, taken when the world is calm enough to tell the truth. Dipper writes like someone steadying a boat. One hand holds a journal, the other steers the pencil, and his breath becomes the tide that keeps both from tipping. He begins with simple entries. Sky clear, wind soft, temperature hoodie. Then the notes reach outward. He sketches the moon's tilt, marks where the skyline looks like a broken crown, labels a rustle in the brush as probably raccoon, and then crosses it out to add definitely raccoon. He gives himself permission to change his mind. The Almanac underlines that part once, pleased. Maps bloom in the margins. Tiny maps no one else would bother to draw. A route from the back porch to the north fence that avoids the squeaky board. A map of the shack stairs with a dot on the step that always sighs and a star on the one that never does. A sky map that connects 3 unimportant stars into a triangle he calls question mark without the dot. He doesn't need anyone to agree. The shapes serve their purpose. They show where curiosity has already been and where it wants to go next. He has a system for the dark. He counts 7 heartbeats before flipping a page, so the sound of turning paper becomes part of the night's rhythm. He sets his pencil down the same way every time, so he can find it by touch if the light slips. He whispers his notes quietly enough that moths aren't tempted to land on words. The Almanac draws these small rituals like constellations and titles the whole pattern. How a careful kid makes a safe sky. Not everything he writes ends up useful. That's fine. He writes anyway. Footstep print, 8.5 inches long, maybe from earlier. Wind direction, smells like cinnamon. Check bakery schedule. Shadows on the roof, one looks like a sailboat. The journal does not judge boats in the sky. The boy doesn't either. He writes the sailboat down, then the time, then a note to ask in the morning if anyone else saw it. He half hopes no one did, so the drawing can belong to the quiet a little longer. He tests theories the way other kids test flashlights. Tap, tilt, listen for rattle, then commit. He marks a tree with a string to measure how far a shadow moves in an hour. He tucks a small pebble on the porch railing to see if the shack's midnight shiver will send it rolling. He records the result without trying to make it bigger than it is. When the pebble stays put, he labels the entry, "Stability confirmed." When it falls, he writes, "Shack danced, pebble applauded." Science and humor share the page because the night allows both. Sometimes the notes slow to a stop. When that happens, he doesn't push. He closes the book just enough that the pages kiss, but do not sleep. And he sits with his chin on his knees and lets his attention wander like a lantern through tall grass. When it returns, the pencil glides again. The Almanac adds a gentle rule to the margin. Pause is data, too. There are entries the book remembers better than others. The first time he wrote the word pattern. The night he circled a symbol in the dust and felt the click of a larger thing that didn't ask to be solved tonight. The evening he diagrammed the sound of the river and proved to himself that memory has a direction and also a tide. The journal's spine learned those nights and leans open to them by itself, like a friend who knows which stories matter when your hands are cold. Inside the cover, there's a pocket where he keeps scraps, a receipt with a number that repeated too neatly to be ordinary, a leaf with a perfect hole in the middle, a strip of cloth with a smell that means, "I will figure this out," though he might say it differently. He has a code for scrap priority. 1 dot for remember, 2 for ask, 3 for do not tell anyone until the shape is kinder. He adds the 3rd dot most often, not from fear, but from respect. Some ideas need to grow slowly under good shade. If the flashlight lulls, the stars take over. He looks up and lets their slow talk soften his forehead. He counts satellites with the sleepy satisfaction of counting house lights on a long drive. He folds the notes under his cheekbone and lets the night do the writing for a while. When he wakes, the page has no new words, but somehow it knows more. The Almanac calls this osmosis of wonder and pretends it is a scientific term because in this town it might as well be. What Dipper does is not solving. Not tonight. It is witnessing. Bearing quiet witness to a place whose strangeness is not an alarm but a lullaby written in a different key. He writes that down too, then smiles, because he knows it's a little much. And also exactly right for how the valley feels at 1 in the morning, when the porch light decides to blink, then decides not to. When he finally closes the journal, he pats it like you pat a tired dog. "Good work," he whispers, as if it were the book that did the seeing. The lamp clicks off. The pages keep their warmth for a moment, long enough to carry him back through the doorway to bed. The Almanac sketches the scene's last line, a rectangle of faint red on the floorboards, slowly fading like a promise well kept. If Dipper's notes are tidy stars on paper, Mabel's are lanterns in motion. She does not take notes. She leaves light. The Almanac flips to a page that looks sprinkled with small circles of watercolor and glitter that somehow never rubs off on your fingers. At the top, Lantern Walk, and under it, Bring Everyone. Her lanterns aren't just glass and flame. Sometimes they're jars with glow paint she mixed herself, 2 parts shimmer to 1 part joy. Sometimes they're paper bags with careful cutouts that make the ground a lace tablecloth for the night. Sometimes they're sweaters. Yes, sweaters. Mabel wears light the way some people wear opinions, brightly, generously, without apologizing. If a sleeve is too dark, She stitches a path of sequins along it, so her arm makes constellations when she points out the real ones. She plans her walks like a party for the dark. The route is important, but not more important than the dance of it. We'll start at the shack, loop by the big pine that looks like a surprised chicken, visit the cat in the store window, and end at the river with a floating goodbye. She writes it in gel pen on a card stuck to the fridge, and if anyone asks why the pine looks like a chicken, she grins and says, "Because we decided." The Almanac applauds with 4 small exclamation marks it uses nowhere else. Neighbors see the lanterns and join without asking what for. That's the trick. Mabel's light makes a reason out of the act itself. Soos takes the heavy basket because he likes to. Wendy falls in a few steps back because she prefers the angle of music that distance makes. Dipper walks beside the glow, pencil wary at first, then letting the color spill into his margins. People who didn't plan to be part of anything find themselves walking anyway, hands in pockets, faces soft, inventing wishes they didn't know needed air. There's a rule on the walk. Mabel calls it a sparkle code. Nothing scary, everything silly is temporary and can be turned down. Any song will do if it's hummed with kindness. She keeps backup lanterns for shy hands and extra stickers for brave knees. When a moth decides a jar is a moon, Mabel shields it with her palm and walks slower so the moth can feel like it is winning. The Almanac prints a tiny moth with a crown on its head and a note. Royalty of the small. She knows every front yard and porch like a second hallway. She knows which steps to skip, which doorbells chime asleep, which garden gnome appreciates a compliment, most of them. She pauses at the house with the plant in the window, tips one lantern so the plant can taste the light. She holds another up to the for lease sign so the empty room can learn what it feels like to host something soft. She turns a lantern towards the clock tower and pretend curtsies, while it quietly keeps time for anyone who forgot how. At the river, the lantern walk slows itself without being told. Mabel lines the jars along the bank, and the light decides by itself to be reflection instead of source. If she brought floaters, she sets them down one by one, and everyone gets to say something small to the water, even if it's only thank you or hi. The river takes the lantern's faces and lengthens them into ribbons, and the ribbons become a path that curves away into dark, like a sentence too gentle to need a period. She collects kindness like other people collect buttons. She pockets a compliment Soos gave the moon. "Nice job, Big Cheese," and a smile from a neighbor who hasn't smiled in days. Later, she will sew those into her sweater lining, not literally, though she could, but in the way that makes a thing warmer because you remember how it felt. The Almanac shows how to stitch such warmth. Big loops, no knots, pull through, breathe out. There is always a child who drifts near Mabel at the edge of the group, the way birds drift to the edge of a pond before deciding to float. Mabel notices because she notices on purpose. She lowers a lantern to the child's height and says, "You're in charge of this one." And the child is. For a whole block, their job is light. The walk gets taller around them to make room. Parents exhale a kind of breath grown-ups forget to take. The Almanac writes, "Promotion ceremony continuous." If a lantern tips and goes out, Mabel doesn't fret. She claps once, like a stage manager calling for attention, and declares the moment a sparkle break. Everyone stops. They listen to the dark. They notice their own warmth. Then someone relights the lantern, and the group moves on, but different. Calmer, as if the night itself had been welcomed formally into the circle. After the walk, she lines the empty jars like trophies of glow and washes them out in warm, soapy water that smells like oranges. She hangs the paper bags to dry so they can be moons again next week. She folds the sweaters so the sequins sleep on their backs like tired stars. She writes a tiny note on the fridge card. We did it, as if any other outcome were possible. The Almanac ends the chapter with a smear of glitter that somehow stays exactly on the page. Proof that light can be put away and still be ready. The shack is never more itself than when Soos is humming to it. Not fixing because broken, fixing because it is kind to keep things in tune. The Almanac's paper thins here from repeated leafing. You can almost feel sawdust in it. Title: Maintenance is Love. Subtitle: Performed while snacks are cooling. Soos works in circles. He starts at the door because the door is how stories enter. He tightens the hinge screws not to make them silent, squeaks are honest, but to keep them from feeling alone. He rubs the latch with a touch of wax so the click says, welcome without shouting. He tests the threshold with a heel roll, listening for the grumble that means shimmy. He hums while he does it, a comfortable, shapeless tune that tells wood, I hear you. His toolbox is a friendly crowd. Tape measure that purrs back into its own belly. Screwdrivers with polite magnetism. A pencil stub that has taken more notes than some notebooks. He lays them out the same way every time. Not because he's rigid, because he's thoughtful. When he reaches, the tool reaches back. The Almanac lists the order just in case. Pencil, square, driver, driver's friend, cloth, snack, water, thanks. He talks to the shack in that voice people use with pets and babies and big ideas that might spook. Hey, buddy, he says to the railing. How we doing? The railing answers with a looseness Soos can hear. He nods. He braces, pre-drills, sets a screw slow enough that the wood has time to adapt. He stops before tight becomes mean. He wipes the extra glue like a parent wiping a kid's chin. He leans back to admire not the perfection, but the participation. The shack is helping him help it. That's plenty. Sometimes a repair turns into a story time. Oh, he unscrews a plank and finds a date written in pencil on the underneath. A summer ago, or 10 summers. He reads it out loud and thanks whichever hands made that mark. He finds a marble lodged where a mouse could have wished for one, and he places it on the windowsill as a nightlight for any passing thoughts that need a place to rest. He discovers an old raffle ticket, shrugs, tucks it into his shirt pocket like a souvenir from a show he enjoyed. He keeps a notebook, grease-smudged, corner-chewed, where he writes what tomorrow Soos should know. South gutter, Leaf City. Boiler sings when lonely. Kitchen drawer, grousel, a good growl. He draws little faces next to entries. When a fix felt like a hug when it asked him to breathe and try again. He never writes fail. He writes paused and puts a tiny sandwich icon there to remind himself food helps more than frustration. The Almanac copies a page and labels it Manual for Future Me. Sometimes he builds solutions that are actually bedtime stories. The squeak near the third stair isn't eliminated. It's tuned to a lower note, so late-night steps sound like a bass player walking you toward safe dreams. The slamming screen door gets a soft, close arm, not so it never slams, so the slam becomes a sigh. The neon sign's flicker gets just enough capacitor care that it winks in slow motion. The way you wave to a friend who will still be there in the morning. He takes breaks the way a careful cook tastes. A sip of water, a handful of chips, a look out the window to count 3 owls. Who? He checks his pockets for missing tools and finds spare kindness instead. A pack of stickers for a kid visitor. A lint-warmed screw for the porch chair that's been waiting. A story about his abuela's kitchen tiles and how they kept the cool like a promise. He tells the shack that story. The shack holds it in the grain. If a fix resists, Soos has a method. Step back. Say, huh. Scratch chin. Try the easier thing first. If the easier thing works, call it wisdom. If it doesn't, try the right thing, slow. If that still doesn't, call to the house like a ship to a lighthouse. Guide me, bro. And somehow the right angle arrives, the pilot hole finds itself, the stubborn becomes cooperative. Thanks, dude, Soos tells the stubbornness. We learned. Midnight repair means leaving rooms better than you found them. It means coiling the cord in loops that won't kink in the morning. It means wiping the handle of the fridge because crumbs like to gather there, and it's nobody's job until it is. It means turning the trash bag edge into a neat cuff that fits the can like a shirt at a good interview. It means making sure the last light turned off is a happy one. He ends with a walkthrough, not to inspect, to appreciate. Door, click, nice. Step, thrum, lower than before, sweet. Counter, smooth, no snag to catch a sleeve. Neon, wink. He gives the wall 2 gentle knuckles. Good game. He stacks his tools, washes his hands at the deep sink, shakes them dry like a drummer after a show. He jots 1 more note. We're okay. The Almanac closes the chapter with a drawing of a screwdriver resting like a spoon in a bowl. Useful, content, clean. There's a place above town where the wind comes first. A hill with grass laid down like a welcome mat and a stump that is the right height for boots. Wendy knows it the way she knows which loose board squeaks without asking for attention. The Almanac's page is wide here. White space around a small fire drawn with 6 careful strokes. Title, The Long View. Subtitle, No Hurry Getting There. She climbs with her jacket unbuttoned and her hat lower than usual. The path is not longer at night. It's just kinder, and she walks it like someone who doesn't owe speed to anyone this hour. On the way, she taps a fence post twice, the way you tap a friend's shoulder when you pass in a crowd. She lifts a branch and lets it down slow so it won't snap back rudely. She steps over a rut where rain once danced itself deeper. The hill likes manners. Wendy has plenty. Up top, the town is a scatter of dozing embers. Porch lights that forgot to argue with themselves. A street lamp that tries a little flicker and decides against it. The river is a stripe the moon colored in. The ridge wears the sky like a big, dark hat. Wendy stands with her hands in her pockets and watches a while without assigning adjectives. The Almanac writes a note. Observation, uncapitalized. She builds a small fire when the air asks for it, nothing dramatic. A ring of stones that know their job, 2 handfuls of tinder, 3 sticks, patience. She lights it with a match that flares brave, then settles into purpose. The smoke goes straight up for a second, then leans toward the side of the hill that prefers stories. Wendy feeds the flame like you feed a cat you like. Not too much, not too little. Always on time. Always with a word or 2 that means, yeah, you're good. Her fire talk is quiet. She tells the hill one thing that happened today that made her grin, and one thing that could have soured but didn't. She shrugs when she can't think of the right detail, and the hill finishes the sentence for her with a hush of grass. Sometimes she sits and lets the sparks draw lines in the air. She reads them the way you read someone's face when they don't want to be asked. You just want to be there. She is good at that, being there. The Almanac underlines good. People think of Wendy as brave because she climbs, because she laughs, because axes don't frighten her, and dumb drama bores her. Up here, bravery looks like stillness. Like not filling the night with words because silence is saying enough. Like knowing when to throw one more stick and when to let the coals make a low-red universe and call it all the light you need. She tips her hat back and lets her hair catch the breeze that always finds the same strand and tugs once like a joke they've told each other 100 times. She remembers stories up here without trying. The kind you keep but don't impose on anyone. The time she held a secret for someone who needed to say it out loud but not have it circulate. The day she walked all the way around town on the high paths and came back with the kind of hunger that makes food taste twice as itself. The first time she realized being the person who doesn't make things complicated is its own wild skill. The Almanac draws a simple knot and then shows it untied without fray. If someone shows up, sometimes Dipper, sometimes nobody, sometimes friend from school who needed air, Wendy makes room without fanfare. She tilts the log so two can sit, or she leaves the log alone and drops to the ground so they don't feel like they took a seat. She offers the fire without comment. If they speak, she listens. If they don't, she listens. She can tell the difference between a story that wants advice and a story that wants to be told near a flame and left alone to be warmer. On breeze-quiet nights, the hill collects sounds from town like seashells collect ocean. A far laugh that didn't mean anything but joy. The gentle protest of a closing gate. A train making the kind of line on a map only trains can make. Wendy leans her head a little, labels each, and puts them in her pocket for later. Not to share around. This is not gossip, it's gratitude. The hill approves by being exactly the same hill it was 5 minutes ago. She has a way of measuring time that isn't clocks. When your breath stops steaming. When the fire moves from orange talk to blue whisper. When the first bat sketching above the river becomes a second. When her hands find they don't want to be warmed anymore, and her feet say 1 more minute, then we go. She is unafraid to leave. She is equally unafraid to stay. The Almanac writes, freedom includes staying put. Before she goes, she scuffs dirt over the coals until their red becomes the memory of red. She touches the warm stones with the back of her fingers like you check a forehead. Thanks, she says to everything at once. Sky, ridge, town, stump, match, air. And somehow everything answers in the precise language of nothing moving too fast. She stands, looks down the path, and takes it not like a descent, but like a continuation. If breezes were hands, they would high-five her. Maybe they do. On the way back, she counts fence posts in the dark and gets the number wrong on purpose, so the last post can feel like a surprise guest at a party that had exactly enough chairs. She pauses at the corner where the street light has a crack in its halo and gives it a nod as if to say, don't worry, nobody's perfect. She arrives home already lighter, and the door receives her without needing an explanation of where she's been. The Almanac closes the chapter with a drawing of a half-smile you can see even under a hat brim and a single sentence under it. She'll be back when the hill wants company. There are nights when geometry visits kindly. Angles arrive with their hats off. Lines bend their knees before they change direction. Triangles set themselves down like folded napkins beside a plate of stars. The Almanac turns to a page faintly dusted with chalk, as if it has been resting on a schoolyard after everyone went home. Title, Dream Logic. Under it, in smaller print, handle with curiosity. If dizziness occurs, look at the moon and breathe. A triangle is the simplest way 3 things can agree. In this valley, agreements like that show up everywhere after dark. The ridge, the river, the town square. Point, 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 make an easy map you can carry behind your eyes. The window of the library, the edge of a shelf, the corner of a book, another triangle, quiet as furniture. Pine needles fall in arrangements that would win prizes if anyone judged them. No one does. Triangles do not need prizes. They need being noticed, then left to their angles. Dreams sometimes borrow that shape and wear it as a mask. Not to frighten. Masks are just frames for attention. In certain sleeps, a little yellow wedge with a sly tilt, and an eye appears at the edge of a thought, the way a corner peeks around a page. There is a hat, yes. There is a grin that might be a crease in paper. But in the soft economy of night, this is not menace. It is quickness. An idea trying on a costume, so you'll remember it in the morning. The Almanac draws a triangle with eyelashes and writes, "Friend, if you behave." The rules of dream geometry are simple and gentle. Count to 3 before you decide what anything means. 1 for the shape, 1 for the space around it, 1 for the breath between. If a triangle spins, do not chase it. Wave. Spinning is the shape's joy, not a test. If an eye appears, blink back slowly. Seeing is a 2-person job. If the corners sharpen, offer them a sweater. It is hard to be pointy when you are warm. The town holds a dozen little lessons for triangles that take themselves too seriously. On the sidewalk behind the diner, kids once traced a big chalk wedge and filled it with good words. Pie, please, porch, plan. When the rain came, the words smudged, but their kindness sank into the grit between the stones. Now, when dream triangles get bold, that patch of sidewalk remembers and says, "Be nice." They usually are. Angles have moods. The Almanac illustrates them with 3 tiny faces. A cute, a quick smile, a sharp hello, the excitement of a new idea, useful in flashes, best softened by tea. Right, agreement. A corner that doesn't argue, the shape of yes that fits. Obtuse, the long lean of a hammock. The way afternoons look when summer isn't in a hurry to leave. Ideal for resting conclusions. When the valley sleeps well, the night makes a Sierpinski of furs, big triangle made of smaller ones, until imagination gets full in the best way, like after good bread. You could keep counting the corners all the way to morning, but you don't. The Almanac leaves a note in the margin. Infinity exists. You are excused from attending every meeting. Sometimes dream geometry writes on water. Set a pebble down and watch the ripples ladder outward. Concentric circles that accidentally build triangular spaces between them when they meet the bank. Bill, or the notion, or the echo of the notion, likes to hide in those negative shapes, peeking as if to test whether you know that absence is also design. You do. You learned it from the spaces letters make inside themselves and from the pauses that make Wendy's jokes land smoother than roads. If a triangle floats into your room, it might just be the shade of the lampshade making friends with the corner of the desk, and the dresser drawer deciding to be a horizon, or it might be thought wearing geometry to look more official. Either way, the Almanac recommends a pencil and a patient hand. Draw the shape slowly. Label each point with a word that makes you feel more here. Now, here, mine. Watch how the angles soften. Triangles are obedient to names that are kind. Sometimes you dream of puzzles, symbols marching, hands pointing, numbers wearing bow ties. You wake with a solution sitting on your lip like a word practicing not to fall. Sit up, write it. Then let it be smaller than it felt. Not every proof needs a parade. The book devotes a page to lullaby math, equations that rock instead of rush. 1 curiosity, 1 breath, 1 promise to go slow enough. Under that, a triangle with a hat, lounging. Caption: See, we can be chill. The eye that troubles people in daytime tales behaves differently in night's almanac. It is not all-seeing, it is well-seeing. It blinks when you blink. It looks away when asked. It focuses not on secrets, but on soothing. Are your shoulders down? Do your teeth unclench? Did you drink water today? If you say no, the eye points at the sink and leaves so you can have the victory of doing it without being watched. When it reappears, it's smaller, a courtesy. Folded paper helps. Make a fortune teller and label every flap with a restful instruction. Stretch, sip, smile, still. Open and close until your hands learn the rhythm and your thoughts fall into it like coins into a fountain's exact middle. Triangles that tried to be bosses become co-workers. One of them holds your pencil. One of them keeps your page from turning in the breeze. One fetches a blanket's corner and tucks it over your knee as if to say, acute was fun, obtuse will be better. The chapter ends with a small, honest diagram. 3 points connected, hat set to the side like someone took it off before napping, eye closed, lashes curved. Under it, the Almanac writes, dream gently with your corners down. Then, in a whisper of ink so faint you have to tilt the page toward the lamp, if a triangle knocks at your window, offer it pie. If it refuses, it wasn't that kind of triangle. Once a year, though the year never agrees when, a festival unfolds in Gravity Falls without posters, tickets, or a loudspeaker. The town simply wakes to find bunting hung in colors that never argue, lanterns yawning themselves awake along the square, and a hand-painted sign that says in cheerful letters, "Welcome to the Festival of Quiet Oddities." The almanac smells faintly of cinnamon and wood smoke on these pages. Someone has tucked a pressed ribbon between them. It whispers when you turn the leaf. There are rules, light as confetti. Nothing startling. Nothing scored like a competition. Everything weird must be kind. If you need a seat, the next seat is for you. The opening parade is a slow procession of ordinary things doing unusual, gentle tricks. A ladder that leans only as far as you wish to climb, then stops, thoughtful. A clock whose hands drift to noon and stay there for a while so everyone can feel lunch in their bones. A watering can that pours exactly enough onto each plant, and then mists the crowd with a cool that smells like late June. Children march with paper crowns that keep sliding down in the same endearing way. No one corrects them. The crowns like it there. Booths line the square with games that would be scandalous in a fair that didn't understand rest. Add ring toss of reasonable expectations. Every ring is slightly too big for every peg, because winning is not the point. When a ring lands, the attendant stamps your hand with a tiny star and says, "You are already good at this." Next door, the compliment raffle awards prizes at random intervals to people who look like they forgot how to receive them. Prizes include an extra minute of sleep delivered later, a ribbon the exact color of a happy memory, a small stone that fits your palm like it remembers you from before. The pie that refills itself tent is both mystery and mercy. Take a slice. The gap closes slowly like a yawn in reverse. No one takes more than they need because the pie looks so pleased to be enough. Soos volunteers there sometimes, wearing an apron that says official slice coach. He cuts with the steadiness of someone tuning a radio. The almanac notes a faint cinnamon fingerprint beside this paragraph and leaves it, as all honest documents should. Music travels without stage. Crickets run the strings section. Frogs keep time with a soft patter, and a broom at the hardware store doorway provides brushes on pavement for percussion when the breeze asks it to. A fiddler appears near the fountain and plays exactly one tune. When she stops, the stopping is part of the song. People clap the way you clap at a baby sleeping after a long day, with eyes. Children drift to the practical magic corner, where a woman with bright hands teaches them benign spells. How to fold a blanket so it remembers to unfold easily. How to knot a shoelace so it cannot be untied by worry. How to look at a friend's face and find "Are you okay?" without making it homework. They practice on each other and pronounce the results official. The air above that corner feels like it would hold you if you tripped. There is a lost found for moments. A long table, dozens of shoeboxes, index cards. People write down small things they wish hadn't slipped. The line of a joke they half forgot. The look a grandmother gave at a wedding. The sound of a particular door from a house that no longer stands. Attendants nod, consult a file cabinet that smells of raincoats, and produce reasonable facsimiles. A joke with the same hug. A look from a neighbor that sits in the same pocket. A door sound recorded from a porch 2 streets over. That makes your breath do the same small good thing. No one claims the objects. They claim the relief. Out beyond the booths on the lawn, a slow race of clockwork turtles proceeds for anyone who requires a narrative. People place their turtle on the starting line, wend until it clicks permission, and then cheer quietly for the turtle that best expresses commitment, without haste. If 2 turtles meet, they tap shells as if exchanging recipes. The winner receives a blue ribbon that says turtle, which is to say, everyone wins. Mabel directs the lantern relay at dusk. Teams carry light from jar to jar around the square, not to beat anyone, but to keep the glow unbroken. When a jar goes out, the closest person relights it and does a little bow. The bow is the whole point. Children invent team names like the Moon Spoons and Glow Patrol and Squad of Hush. Dipper writes the route on a card and then loses the card on purpose so the group will have to trust someone's good guess. Vendors sell useful oddities. A pencil that refuses to poke through a pocket. A cup that tells you politely when you've had enough coffee for a day that wants calm. Socks that remember not to twist inside your shoes. A pocket-sized map of the square that only shows where shaded benches are. The currency is compliments and thanks. People overpay all afternoon and nobody minds. As evening rounds its shoulders, the festival folds toward its last ceremony, the hum. Everyone who wants stands wherever they are and hums a single note. Any note will do. The hum gathers into a tone that sounds like the town breathing in, then out, in, out. Lights dim themselves like participants. The hum ends on its own, not cut, not stuck, just done. The Almanac draws this as a wave with a gentle crest and writes, "Applause withheld, because finishing is its own applause." Cleanup happens as if by magic, because magic here means many hands. The booths return to boxes marked "Next Time." The bunting rolls up without wrinkling. The pie tin rests. The fountain keeps its coin secret. If you walk home through streets that look the same as they did yesterday, and they are not, they have learned another way to be harmlessly strange. You will feel it in the click of your light switch, and the way your shoes put themselves under the chair. The sign remains one more night. In the morning it is gone, but the ribbon pressed in these pages stays. The Almanac lets you touch it again. It is still whispering about turtles. Endings and gravity falls do not slam. They fold. The Almanac opens to paper that looks a little like a leaf that decided to be a page. Title: When Summer Ends. Under it: Handle with mittens or hands you've warmed by holding your own elbows. Fireflies are the first to notice. One night there are many. The next night there are fewer. The ones that remain blink longer, as if finishing a sentence properly. Children chase half-heartedly and then stop, content to watch. Mabel, who knows how to store sparkle, starts packing light the way others pack clothes. She chooses sweaters that carry summer in their stitches and tucks in scraps of laughter, the way you tuck tissue paper in a box to keep gifts from bumping. Dipper finishes a page, draws a careful line across it, and writes a small date that looks like a bow on a parcel. He does not close the journal hard. He sets the ribbon back in its place like someone returning a bookmark to a friend. He writes one more field note in a margin that didn't ask for it. season, turning. He underlines it once, not to insist, to witness. Shops change their breath. The bakery's window fog smells more like cinnamon and less like peaches. The general store leans mittens where sunscreen used to be, and the cat sleeps in the middle of them as if to say, all this is for resting. The diner adds soups with names that mean color: tomato, squash, bean. The clock tower's hour seems thicker, like honey tilted too slowly from a spoon. The Almanac places a tiny leaf beside each of these and writes, quiet, yes. Soos installs storm windows with a friendliness that makes storms forget their edge. He checks the furnace the way you check on a friend who hasn't called lately. Not pushy, just present. He oils a hinge and says, say on the other side of cold, dude. And the hinge, relieved, replies in the language of not creaking. He makes a note to buy more cocoa, and beside it, a note to remember that cocoa tastes better when shared before people ask. Wendy's Hill puts on a jacket. The grass lies lower, the wind carries spice from pine bark, and the first decision of a distant stove. She lights a small fire anyway, for memory's sake, then lets it be mostly ash and orange lines. Her hat sits lower. She adds a second pause between thoughts and discovers nothing breaks. She pockets two sounds, the dry run of leaves rehearsing for later, and the soft thunk of an apple resigning itself to earth. The river remembers longer this time of year. It lingers at curves. It polishes stones with a patience you can feel in your wrists. There are fewer bottles and more branches. Lanterns, when set afloat, travel like advice that will land whenever it should. On certain mornings, mist rises not just from the surface, but from under it, as if the water itself had a thought it preferred to keep warm. The Almanac labels this steam of maybe. Porches earn their keep. Chairs learn blanket. Lights learn dimmer. Wind chimes lower their voices a note. People stand with mugs at railings, thinking in sentences that do not require verbs. A neighbor raises a hand. Another raises a chin. A dog curls in the shape of an apostrophe at a sentence about rest. The gnomes practice early tucks, rehearsing their blanket work for colder nights when toes forget their training. The library changes its lamp schedule. Lamps blink on sooner, like courteous ushers. Books move toward topics that taste like inside. Soups, letters, ship logs from long voyages where the night took up more room in the day. The blank title pages in the attic add a few seasonal entries. How to stay, says one. How to leave, says another. Their pages are equally empty, which feels correct. The Almanac leaves them exactly where they are. Kids measure themselves on door frames and find they have grown in laugh shapes, not inches. Back-to-school lists appear on refrigerators, written in a tidy script that seems to understand what it means to be ready and also to be allowed not to be. Backpacks exhale sand. Pockets exhale ticket stubs. Socks find their pairs as if the drawer were a reunion. Packing is a series of decisions disguised as folding. Mabel rolls a sweater that still smells faintly of river and tucks in a bracelet made of festival ribbon. She writes a note to herself on a sticky star. Wear joy when it's cold. She sticks it inside the collar so it will brush her neck like advice. Dipper makes a stack of maps more than he makes a stack of shirts. He pencils a new line on one, a path from summer to next time, with a bench drawn neatly at the midpoint. Goodbyes happen in pieces. A nod at the cat in the store window. A last slice of a pie that knows it is the last slice and tastes generous about it. A tap on the railing Soos tightened in Chapter 11 because gratitude is cumulative. A look up at the sleeping bear and a breath in time with it. A hand on the Mystery Shack's door, palm to wood. The way you promise you'll be back without speaking promise out loud. Because words like that prefer to be shown. Rain returns with better manners. It asks permission to drum on roofs and then does it with the soft part of its fingers. Air grows honest about its chill. Scarves start their slow migration from the back of drawers to the hooks by doors. Squirrels move their constellations of acorns closer to the trunks of trees that tell the best winter stories. The Almanac adds, "We will be fine." Some nights are so clear after the first cold that the stars feel brand new minted. You can hear the click of constellations lining up for their shift. Bill's triangle sleeps. The festival bunting dreams in its box. The turtles wait in their tin. The river practices a lower hum. The houses breathe slower, deeper. On such nights, you could count every kindness you saw this season and run out of numbers in a pleasant way. The book recommends fingers, toes, fence posts, anything handy. The last page of this chapter looks like a suitcase you do not have to carry. On its tag, the Almanac has written, "Endings fold, do not crumple." Below that, in a hand you recognize from earlier chapters, "Beginnings ride inside." The corners of the page are rounded from 1,000 imaginary packings. When you close it, the paper makes the sound a leaf makes when it lands where it meant to. Summer does not go away here. It sits down on a bench at the edge of town and naps. When you pass that bench in the middle of winter, you'll tilt your head and think you smell peaches. You will. The bench remembers. The town remembers. So do you. The ribbon finds its place in the Almanac again. The lamp is still warm. The next page waits, not with urgency, with welcome. What stays behind? When the day pulls its chair in closer and autumn looks like a sweater hung over the back of it, Gravity Falls keeps doing what it has always done. It remembers without making a show of it. The remembering lives in places that do not ask for applause, under porch steps, in the settled part of river water, along the edges of a trail that only looks like it ends. The map drawer in the Almanac's front room still smells like cedar. Open it, and the paper rises just enough to say hello. The first night map we walked, Lantern Way, the ridge, the little circle called Meet the Sky. It's all there, but a pencil has added a softer line beside the old one. Someone walked slower and the map learned their pace. That's what the town keeps. Not footprints, but proofs that careful happen. Houses continue to breathe. A pane of glass wears a streak where a small hand drew a moon the last evening of summer. The streak is gone in daylight, but at night it comes back the way music returns to a quiet room when a door opens. The mystery shack creaks at the same step it always has, a low, agreeable tone tuned by Soos to sound like consent. When wind brushes the shingles, the roof answers with the lightest drum, "Just the fingertips, please." Because midnight is a neighbor, and neighbors deserve manners. The library tends its lamps early. If you arrive during that blue sliver after sunset, every bulb looks as though it has thought through the rest of the evening and decided, yes, I can make it softer. Upstairs, the attic hatch still leads to the small room between roofs. New blank title pages have joined the stack. How to keep friends with weather. Small repairs for big feelings. Their emptiness is accurate and somehow generous. You do not have to know yet. You do not have to know soon. Shops keep their night shifts. The diner's dream reel spins a melody that remembers feet on the tile but does not require them. The general store cat patrols the top shelves like a moonlight surveyor and sits exactly above the nail bins when it's time to be important. The tailor's tape measure sleeps in a loop that translates to "you will fit" in every language the town speaks. Even the empty storefronts hold a little heat, like jars holding their last light, ready, not urgent. Down by the river, the tree with the bench bark leans into winter with the same quiet it used for spring. The root that kept a laugh hum from a long-ago evening still sings if you put your ear near it, though the note is lower now, like a person's voice in the morning before tea. Bottles travel less. Branches travel more. Lanterns still try the water sometimes. They wobble like ideas practicing yes, and the river says, gently, and they do. The animals keep the scale balanced. Lighthouse deer carries 2 moons at once in its eyes on those rare nights when the sky lends a reflection to the shallow bend. Squirrels move their constellations closer to trunks that tell longer stories. Owls count the town's breaths and report, without speaking, that the number is good. The fox writes its quick punctuation through the vacant lot and leaves a red comma at the edge of your thinking. Pause here. Continue kindly. Hidden doors stay hidden because it's good for them. The broom closet kitchen still hums behind the delivery alley, steam steady, pots patient. The tree knot bed remains exactly 3 raccoons large and no larger. It knows its capacity. The stone arch in the park continues to hinge you between 2 present tenses and refuses any job that would make it grand. The door to nowhere answers knocks with the smallest possible sounds. The sound of a page turned gently, of a porch chair receiving a person who waited to sit until the chair felt ready. Festivals happen again exactly when they're ready. The pie that refills itself tent appears with Soos's apron folded on the counter and a cinnamon fingerprint already asleep on the recipe card. Turtles line up, wind just enough, meet in the middle to exchange shell taps. Someone else wears the crown that kept falling down last year. It falls the same way and still looks right there. A woman at the practical magic corner teaches how to tuck a note in your own pocket that says, you can go home whenever you wish. And for some reason, that is a spell that works even if you don't leave. The hill above town doesn't change its height and changes everything else. It keeps Wendy's place at the stump, the match tin under the rock, the wind that arrives first and says, I told them you were coming. On nights when no one climbs it, the hill sits with the stars the way a porch sits with evening, content to be the thing that makes other things comfortable. Dippa's journal closes and opens in other hands, not the one you think. Some second cousin of a second cousin finds a blank book that feels like a window and draws a terribly accurate map of a 3-step staircase. Sigh. Silent. Quiet, yes. In a closet, a box cut from cardboard long ago has a circle door and a rule inside it. Must invent new hello. Children you don't know keep that rule like a family tradition they think they made up yesterday. Mabel's lanterns do what light always does when it's treated with respect. They appear where they're needed, make faces brighter without making the night smaller, then go back on a shelf with a note pinned to their handles that says, thanks, again later. You can see the glue glitter on the paper bags if you pass the shack's back room with a flashlight and lift the lid of the storage bin that squeaks but never complains. Triangles behave themselves. Dream geometry visits politely and leaves a hat by the door. The eye blinks when you blink, looks away when you ask, points to the sink if you forgot water. The chalky corner of the Almanac's dream page still says, friend, if you behave, and nothing is needed to be crossed out yet. Sometimes you find a little paper fortune teller under a couch cushion, flaps labeled stretch, sip, smile, still. If you open and close it a few times, your shoulders lower as if on a spring that understands you better than you thought. Codes and puzzles still hide in plain sight. They simply choose softer hiding places. The diner bill totals too neat because the cook is flirting with symmetry, not because the universe is issuing orders. A soda machine hums a lullaby in a key that makes dishwater sound like a choir if you're standing at the sink when it starts. Backwards voices stay in the attic, content to be whispered legends the way quilts are content to be folded in summer and become whole again when the air asks. People come and go. A new family arrives in a wagon that looks like a car that looks like a hope. They do not know how the town works yet. The town is patient. An older man who always wore the exact same hat stops wearing it. The clerk at the store does not ask why. She takes a small extra second to count out the change and puts it in his hand like a thank you for showing up so long. A student who left in June returns at Thanksgiving with a backpack that smells like trains and laundry rooms. He stands at the square and doesn't say, "I missed it," out loud, because he doesn't have to. Soos's manual for future me fills with new pages. Snow squeak, good squeak. Boiler sings again, new song. Kitchen drawer still grozzle, still good. He adds a sticker, gold star, for a fix that took 3 tries in a sandwich. In the margin beside the star, he draws a little screwdriver resting like a spoon in a clean bowl. The shack keeps humming his tune even when he's at lunch, which means the building learned the melody. Everywhere you have been is still somewhere. The bench where summer naps keeps its warm spot even in February. The chalk line across the sidewalk turns into a doorway each time someone steps with kitten-carrying softness. The Lost Found for Moments table waits quietly under a canvas in a storage room and somehow still helps people in the square on days when no booth is set up. Someone will look out a window, see rain caught in the streetlight, and suddenly remember the exact laugh they thought was gone for good. The town is generous like that. It delivers by remembering. The sleeping bear remains above the ridge, its back curved over the valley, teaching anyone who needs it how to breathe without permission. The bear's lesson works if you're 10, if you're tired, if you're busy, if you're old, if you're watching a sink fill, if you're waiting for soup to cool, if you're sitting on a step counting how many fence posts have hats of snow in and out, in and out. Not a trick, a rhythm. What stays behind is not a list. It's a way. The way doors accept hands without judging what those hands were doing before. The way porches become confessionals without taking notes. The way the river checks its direction because even water deserves to remember on purpose. The way neighbors say each other's names as if they were small lights that needed a little more oil. The way the town makes a home for strangeness without letting strangeness make a home for fear. The Almanac has one more fold-out tucked in the back, a panorama that stretches ridge to river to square to shack and back again. When you open it, the paper makes a quiet sail sound. It shows the town at night, but not just one night. It layers 100 nights at half opacity. Lantern lines repeat. Footpaths learn one another. Windows glow in different squares, but always in the same language. The river shines in thin slivers and fat ribbons. The hill keeps a fire for some evenings and only a waiting log for others. The page looks busy if you stare. If you soften your eyes, it looks like one thing, belonging. Closed out, it slides home and the seam disappears into the spine like a thought that decided to rest. You do not have to carry all of this. You only have to know it is carried. By trees, by bricks, by the metal rod in the clock tower, by the glass jar that remembers every light it has held, by a knot in a trunk that takes exactly 3 raccoons of sleep and no more, by a broom whose lean position still opens a hallway to the kitchen that cooks a soup you cannot taste, but somehow finish anyway. What stays behind is ready for next time, and the next after that. You're next. Someone else is next. The quiet future of the town that always pretends not to watch for you and always does. The almanac leaves a blank inch at the bottom of the page. Not for notes, for breath. Breathe. Good. We can close now. Close the book slowly. Let the cover meet its other half without a hurry. The leather has a memory for your palm now. It leans toward it, the way a cat leans toward a familiar knee. The ribbon waits. It has learned its job, to lie across the last line and keep the night from wandering out when you're not ready. Lay the ribbon in and let a little red show, because a small promise looks good in this light. Around you, the room does what rooms do well at the end of a story. It becomes easier to be in. The lamp is still warm. Turn it down one notch. Hear the small click that tells you the rest of the house heard you too and approved. Outside, the pines hold the air steady. The bear above the ridge maintains its unremarkable miracle. The river is practicing a lower song you don't have to learn. If you wish, set the almanac on the table and put your hand on it once, like a greeting backwards. That handprint will not show, but the paper will know. Books are good at that, being touched in ways no one else can see. Now, account for the friends you walked with, lanterns that went ahead, boots on a hill, a screwdriver that thanked a hin, a cat on a mitten, an owl that counted with you, a raccoon with excellent taste in nickels, a triangle that learned how to nap, a festival that kept winning at being gentle, a door to nowhere that made a sound exactly like a page turn. If any of those arrive in your dreams, let them. If none arrive, that is also the town doing its job, keeping you company by staying where it is. We covered maps, houses, sky, river, and creatures, shops and secret doors, children before they were names on mail, night notes and lantern walks, repairs and hills, dream logic that learned its manners, a festival that whispered, an ending that folded, not snapped. What remains is simple. You are allowed to sleep. If sleep needs a direction, borrow the one the river chose after it remembered. If it needs a number, borrow the clock tower's patient 12. If it needs a shape, draw a doorway of 3 stars and leave it open. If it needs a sound, hum the note the town hums when no one is looking. If it needs a rule, use only this one. Walk slowly enough that the night can walk with you. Turn the lamp again. There. The room gets larger and gentler at once. You can hear the tiny clicks of the clock, the low hush under the hush, your own breath keeping time with the bear. Feel your shoulders find the pillow without searching. Let your eyes reach the part of closing where pictures stop insisting and start drifting. Let your hands go uncomplicated. Good night to the drawers, the door, the floor. Good night to the road that leads to the square. Good night to the key tray and the coat hook and the lucky nail that has held something meaningful every day for years. Good night to the ridge's hat and the river's memory and the porch lights that refuse to judge. If you want, you can say the last line with the book. It has it written inside its cover, just small enough that you have to know it to know it. Sleep well beneath the pines. And if the night asks for a last light, give it the window's soft rectangle on the floor. It will fold itself into a bookmark and keep your page until morning. Good night, Gravity Falls.